This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The show. So this is going to be an in-depth look into the issues that we are facing and exactly what is going on. But before we do that, I want to welcome you to the show in the way in which we do. Dennis is going to share today's proverb. We'd love to get your interpretation of it.
So today we are in Botswana, capital Gaborone, rich in diamonds. It is a country that has the largest population of elephants in the world, talking about 130,000. But let's go to the proverb today. Even if it's a cripple, it can still be able to stand. Even if it's a cripple, it can still be able to stand. I'll start with the lady. Ladies, go first. How would you interpret that proverb?
Well, even if it's a cripple, it still be able to stand. Mm-hmm. I believe that means you shouldn't write people off just because of one situation. It could be they're able to do something in another way. Mm-hmm. So you don't necessarily have to write them off just because their situation today may look bad. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Samuel, how would you interpret it?
I would interpret it like don't look down on someone. Mm-hmm. They can still make it.
Can still make it.
Yeah.
Nguli.
Yeah, I think this is an analogy which is very useful in terms of trying to understand that we cannot assume that others can't measure up to expectations. The best we need to do in life is give a chance and give an opportunity for others to also make a try and an attempt to something.
Mm. Well said, well interpreted.
Indeed. So, without a report, already, if you're on this planet, you hear certain things and you are aware of certain realities. But then with the report, then you become alive to those realities. So the report came out last week, and we're looking at human trafficking. And Kenya, after Libya, on the continent, is number 2 in terms of human trafficking. But we want to get an understanding of what exactly we're talking about here. And we'll start with you, Bonanguli, because when we talk about Kenya being number 2 human trafficking on the continent, what does that mean? That Kenyan citizens are being moved from point A to point B without their consent and or knowledge, that there are recipients on the other side who are taking them for work, for what? Okay, please, help.
Thank you. Actually, just like we did a conversation in the last episode a week ago, human trafficking is actually about deception. Mm. It's about fraud. It's about, you can also be forced into it. You can also be held in bondage. You can also be placed in slavery, depending on how circumstances work out for you. But the point at the bottom of it is it's never a consensual affair with full knowledge by the victim. So therefore, that is the context under which Kenya gets a ranking in Africa. The amount of people, the population moved through deception, through, unclear and untruthful means has actually generated a lot of movement of populations from this country into different destinations actually across the world now. Yeah, because you get to hear stories about the different places, some in countries that we've never heard of before, where Kenyans are now being exploited for. And this is all the same schemes. And the people who are doing this are the same people who understand how to play it clear without detection.
One then would ask Nkatha that today, when we are told that Kenya has been ranked second when it comes to matters to do with human trafficking, what exactly does that mean? Because many would look at it and ask, okay, sawa, we are second, so. So in terms of numbers, what does that mean to families of those who've been trafficked? What does that mean to those who've been trafficked? What does that mean to the country? So that you just go deeper, more than just that you've ranked second, because many would look at it and say, okay, so number 2, let's move.
Well, what that actually means is, and I want to believe the fact that numbers don't lie. I'm a numbers person.
Yes.
And numbers never lie. And the fact that we ranked number 2 is actually a big concern. because that means we have a lot of our children, we have a lot of our women, we have a lot of our youths getting trafficked and getting out there and probably getting stuck. Because nobody is there to support them. And sometimes, when we talk about human trafficking, those are not just numbers. Those are families that are broken. Those are children. That's someone's uncle. That's someone's aunt. That's someone's mother. And when you talk about the impact of what that trail of human trafficking leaves behind, then it's actually something that you can't even stand to fathom, because it's a lot of pain and a lot of anguish that the survivors go through. And sometimes we even lose lives in the middle of it, because there are people that they can't cope up. You've probably gotten a job, you've been promised a job, let's say from here you've been told we are headed to Qatar, and you get to Dubai and you're not able to connect your ticket because you can't be able to, and you were just given an air ticket that lands you to Dubai. So you land in Dubai and you are promised you're probably going to be a sales representative, maybe in a big company in Qatar, and you get to Dubai, you're stuck there. And when you're stuck there, now that means you either find yourself sometimes in a brothel, you'll find yourself on the streets, you'll find yourself in some, DG organization there, and you'll probably be operating as a scammer. And sometimes, for majority of the cases that we've seen happening in Dubai, majority of the women end up in sex trafficking. So, and when you talk about sex trafficking, then it's a whole can of worms, because that's someone, because when we talk about statistics and numbers, you cannot afford to ignore that. So that tells you the number of people, or rather the number of women, children, adults, youths, all of them ending up in the trafficking rings is a very big number. And as a country, we need to be worried.
Okay. Obviously, we're talking about numbers here because it's not a matter of how you feel or perhaps a rumor. Yeah. We're looking at numbers, right? So let's go to you, Simon. What happened to you? Samson, I beg your pardon. Samson, what happened to you?
So I was a victim, or I'm a victim, and I would call myself right now a survivor of human trafficking.
Okay.
I was deceived late 2024 with a promise that I'll get a job in the island as a customer service.
Thailand, okay.
Yeah. But I ended up in Myanmar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to tell us exactly what happened, because how did this happen? You knew you were going to Thailand.
Yeah.
You filled out papers, I would assume, an application, paid an amount to an agent. What happened?
So I through a friend, I got a referral through a friend that there are some jobs in Thailand. And even now, if you go to TikTok, Telegram, there are so many jobs there in Southeast Asia. So desperately to get a job and to change my life, I decided to give it a try. I was connected to a lady here in Kenya, an agent, whom I paid 40,000 for the visa. And then there was another money, $90,700 for the show money. That is the show money you are supposed to show at the airport. So that because the visa was a tourist visa, valid for 3 months. So in case an immigration officer asks you, you are intended, your purpose, what you are going to do there.
Tourist.
So you are a tourist. So I left Kenya on September 3, 2024, with a promise that I'm going for a customer service job in Thailand.
Okay.
They paid for the flight, those guys. While here, they opened a Telegram account. We were 6 of us, 4 Kenyans, 1 Pakistan, and a Ugandan. A Ugandan was the agent there who was to receive us. So they opened a Telegram account where we, here at JKIA, we shared our photos that we've arrived at JKIA. We boarded the flight to Qatar, and then we connected to Thailand. When we reached Thailand, we were taken by another person. They took us in a taxi, journey for about 6-7 hours.
To where?
Now to Myanmar.
Okay.
Now we've left Thailand.
Did you ask why you were leaving?
Yes, we
Thailand?
asked.
And?
Actually, we are connected to internet, but when we asked so many questions, they disconnected us.
So to whom were you asking these questions?
The driver. the taxi driver.
So in this taxi, how
Yeah.
many of you were in the taxi?
You are 4.
4 of you who
Yeah.
were going to work.
Yeah.
And there was nobody else? No agent, nobody?
No agent, no one else.
Just the taxi driver?
Yeah, just the taxi driver.
What did he say when you asked him where you were going?
We mostly use translators because of the language barrier.
Okay.
So in most cases, he could not understand us.
Okay.
When we persisted, he disconnected us from
Who
the internet.
disconnected?
The taxi driver.
Okay.
Taxi
Yeah.
driver.
So we could not ask anything. And the journey continued.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we reached a place called Mysot in Thailand. That is the border of Thailand and Myanmar. They took us to a hotel. It was around 11 o'clock at
Before you
night.
proceed, how did you cross the border?
From
Thailand to Myanmar.
now, we've not crossed yet.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going there. So when we reached Mysot, is the border of Thailand and Myanmar. They took us to a hotel, the taxi driver, where we spent about 5 hours until the next morning, around 5 in the morning. Another taxi came for us. They took us now to the border of Myanmar and Thailand. From there, they took us on a boat because it's a river.
Okay.
They took us on a boat. Now we crossed to Myanmar using a boat. From there, then the military took us, the rebels. Yeah, the rebels there, the military.
Took you to where?
Now to the scam city.
So you crossed the border.
Yeah.
So as you are crossing the Thai border with Myanmar, do you go through border security checks?
No.
No.
Yeah.
So you just boarded a boat
Yeah. We just boarded a boat.
and ended up in the
It's
hands of the rebels.
what do we call it in Kiswahili? Ni njia tu za
Mkato.
za mkato.
Back route
Panya
channels.
routes. Yeah, panya routes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't go through the correct channel
Yeah.
for you to enter
We use the
Myanmar.
panya routes.
At that point, surely you must have known that there was something very wrong.
Yes.
Okay. We'll come back because we want to figure out then how we know that you had gone for an unintended purpose, according to you.
Okay.
Let's come back to you, Nguli. Do these things sound familiar? Because obviously you're on this circuit to be able to understand and hear a lot of this. Do these things sound familiar in renditions that have been given from other people that perhaps, you know, the hairs on the back of your neck would have stood up at some point saying, no, something here is not right?
Well, this is a very familiar script
Okay.
in this country. And in the region, I think, because again, trafficking is not just happening in Kenya. At the regional level, sub-regional level within Eastern Central Africa, I think Kenya is both an origin, a transit, and a destination country, where we have all dynamics of practice within the context of trafficking. So we receive, but we also send out, but we are also launch pads for other nationalities who are coming through Kenya to also destinations of their exploitation. So this is not a very new and strange story to hear in terms of how Samson was able to be deceived. Remember, Kenya and within the sub-region, I think we have a very huge bulging youth population, which is actually giving all the countries a huge challenge of what to do with that. And with that, I think the smart guys who are now doing the trafficking see the opportunity to be able to create very fictitious opportunities and situations that offer some imaginable solutions which young people buy into. And for some of these young people who have been out here for years without jobs or without serious jobs, they would really try to take opportunities of this nature. So it's not new and it's not going to stop now. We have to continue looking at the way we continue to engage with our young population, and especially the unemployment and the poverty levels that are actually eating our society. This is very important and cardinal in terms of how we look at it as a country and as people. Yes.
Nkatha, one would then ask the question, if the information that Nguli has is public knowledge out there, what then is aiding it? Is the government in the forefront in making sure that such do not happen, or it is a question of the government is unable, or is it unwilling?
You could look at it from maybe two spectrums. Because on one side we have the government giving us a solution, and I'm calling it solution in quotes, because we have, let's say, for example, the recent Job Maju
Kazi
program.
Maju.
Yes, the Kazi Maju program. Yeah, but now it is a very good idea, but the systems is what kind of lacks in terms of supporting. Because when you say you're providing them Kazi Maju, then who is doing the screening? Who is making sure that when something goes wrong, these people are really like cared for, and they don't really have to suffer the trauma that comes with human trafficking? Then who is also on the receiving end here? Yeah, because the government on one side will tell you we're providing our unemployed youths with jobs, and on this other side we're looking at it from the perspective that you've gotten that job Maju, yes, you've left. Then now what happens to you in case something happens to you while you're there? Do you, number one, have a contract that's valid? Because if you don't have a contract that's valid, chances are you'll end up in some prison cell, and nobody's coming to rescue you. You have to find yourself a way of getting back to this. And also the other thing I think is also the fact that as Kenyans we have a very huge uptick of the internet connectivity, and so I don't know if it's gotten to a point where the government has no idea what to do with us as youths or as Kenyans, because I mean, saying that you can control what happens on the internet may really be bordering, privacy and, snooping around of the, big brother. And everybody is asking now the bigger questions. But again, because that's on the internet, that's where you have all these jobs being paraded.
Okay.
And that's where you have all the agents saying, oh, we have this certain job, we have this thing happening. And by the way, it's also not just internationally. We are looking at it even from a local perspective. Because if I were to ask so many of us Kenyans, in our households, we have domestic workers. So the question is, does your house help have a contract? So what happens to this house help? Because majority of them, they'll come running that they've worked for you for, let's say, 3-4 months. You've not paid them. Or probably you give them a plate of food. Like we were doing a rescue of another 15-year-old that had been employed and sexually exploited by the boss in their house, and also she's not been paid for 10 months. Then she's also gotten pregnant along the way.
Oh,
so where do you start with this situation? If you were to unravel this whole mess, where will you start? Will you call it defilement now that she's 15? Yeah. Or will you call it human trafficking and exploitation because now she's gotten sexually abused and she's also not been paid?
Child labor.
Will you call it child labor? And then she's also coming from all the way from Kakamega and she's working in Nakuru. So where do you start?
So there are many layers to all of this, of course.
Yes.
And we're going to be able to talk to yet another victim, but I want to come back to you, Samson. So you got to what you're calling Scam City now.
Yeah.
So just tell us what happens in Scam City. And then before that, did any bells go ringing off in your head at some point that what was going on here? Because you're an educated man. You must have known, okay, something here is not making sense. You, till today, you still know the face. If the agent were to walk in here today, you would know exactly who it was, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to Scam City now. What was going on in Scam City that things now became ugly?
Okay. So let me point out something Nkala has said, that these guys, they are really good in deception. Because before leaving Kenya, we were promised that we'll get a 1-year work visa.
Okay.
After we arrived there. But upon arriving there, the story was different. While in Scam City, there are so many companies. There were around 200 companies there. I was in one that was focusing on scamming real estate agents. We would approach real estate agents from America, pretend like we want to purchase property, and then bring in the issue of investing in cryptocurrency. You pretend that you are in US, you are given an Instagram account of a fake person, such that when you communicate with that client or with that real estate agent, in case he or she asks for your photo, you just download from Instagram and send. So they take you as a real person. So we would scam. The first few weeks was for training. Let's say the first like 1 month was for training, how you are supposed to approach them, how you are supposed to make calls. We had everything at our disposal, US numbers, everything. So, and mostly we would use your WhatsApp to approach them.
So in the beginning, you knew exactly what they wanted you to do?
Like before going there?
No, when you got to Scam City, because all of these things you're explaining, somebody obviously sat down with you and had a conversation.
Yeah.
So you knew exactly what it is that they wanted you to do.
Yes.
And you began the work.
Yes, once you reach there, the story is now twisted.
Okay.
You are going there for a customer service job. But once you reach there is no way out. So they explain everything. Yeah.
Okay. So you started this work?
Yeah, I started the work on around 10th of September, 2024.
And why did you want to leave?
It was so horrible. The place was so horrible. Yeah.
What do you mean?
The living conditions, the torture, and everything.
So the torture and the living conditions were the issue and not what you were doing?
Also what I was doing.
Okay.
Because I think it is unethical to scam as an individual, like, especially when you're scamming someone directly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the contract that you had, one would ask the question then, how much was it and why you really paid your dues in this coming? Did you have a target? If you don't hit your target, what happens to you?
They would give you the first 3 months. That is when you at least you maneuver everything, their website and everything. After the first 3 months, you must get a client to scam. If not that, then the torture starts. The salary was, the promise was $800 per month. And actually they paid us $75,000 the first month. And then the second month they paid us half of it. And that was the end of getting a salary, unless and until you get a client to scam. Then you get a commission.
So by getting so the scam has to be successful for you to get
Yes, it has to be successful. Once you get let's say you get a real estate agent, you have to be that client for 7 days. Before those 7 days, you must have gotten something from him or her.
Nguli, this is, you look at it as a young person who's out here grinding, opportunities in Kenya are not available. The government says, kuna kazi maju, right? And there is the government bureaucracy that does exist. And many people don't want to go through all that, right? So as a young person, I'm hustling out here. I'm going out of my way to find an easy landing. People go through these processes. But one then asks the question, even as he goes through that as an individual, we have border control and immigration services, right, at the airport. And when you're there, you see how thorough and how serious they are in terms of where are you going, your return ticket, who are you going to meet, your accommodation will be where, and all these questions you're asked. At what point does it get lost to immigration officers that things do not add up and stops someone from traveling? At what point does it get lost to the immigration officers that this individual is okay to leave the country and I'll stamp their passport?
Actually, the way everything is framed is within the law. In fact, don't think that immigration officers just let people go. There may be a few cases that might be of that nature, but I can assure, by and large, they comply. It is only if there is a commitment possibly to do a background check to verify both information and facts around the case being handled. So what that means is the people will be paraded, complete with visa, everything done well. And you can see they are even asked to do some cash evidence that as tourists they'll have some money to spend on. And that is already validating the status. And the visa is only for 3 months, not a long time. So basically they meet a threshold of some kind. It is just the sheer purpose that someone has to look beyond the eyes to ask deeper questions. And that is where possibly the whole system of criminal networks will start being, dealt with.
But Nguli, one would then further just ask the question. We know what is happening. We know it has been happening in the country, that those who are leaving the country with tourist visas end up being trafficked. We know that those who leave the country, especially young people going to work outside, it never ends well. I mean, is it then a failure that those at immigration offices have, or rather the government has not thought through it well to do background checks and perhaps even delay somebody to just know exactly what is happening? Because it has been in the public. The government knows about it. The government has repatriated enough people who have gone through the same process.
Yeah, I still come back to this, to the context where Nkatha talked about Kazimaju. In all intents and purposes, I think it was well-intended program that should be able to promote youth employment outside of this country and possibly start dealing with some of the factors that are making young people desperate and convenient victims of trafficking. So what that means for us is that beyond the fact that we are getting young people to be promised jobs, we have seen enough of them come back with negative stories opposed to what was in the intention. And therefore, that is where the actual work should begin. What is not working? What is not, or what is enabling the situation? Because until there is a problem, you don't create a problem out of a situation that you feel already is cushioned in law. And I'm looking at a situation where now the government starts asking the hard questions. Why do we find ourselves having to react to situations? Can we be more proactive? Because you don't need to continue saying all this. I know there is the current story now that the Prime Minister, the Chief Cabinet Prime Cabinet Secretary is going to Russia to try to bring back Kenyans. You see, we need some very proactive intentions that will enable to deal with these matters before they can get escalated to the levels that we seem to be dealing with. And the report that we read last week is not one incident. It's a collective summary of the level of failures that have enabled us to find ourselves as a country becoming such a lucrative market for traffickers in Africa. And before we finish this, I'll also give you a story that and a context which I don't think we properly understand, because I know the first country was Libya. Why Libya? I'll give you a bit of some analysis of why Libya has been on that focus. And for real, we have a very strong link also with how the movement of Kenyans, especially from the northern part of Kenya, are actually being linked with Libya.
How?
Through the Mediterranean.
To go and work.
Yes.
Okay. We're also then joined at this point by another unfortunate victim of trafficking. It has happened. And then to be able to get some insights from him in terms of what the issue was, or rather is, Duncan Odindo joins us this morning as well. Duncan, good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So, of course, sad to hear that you were a victim of this. What happened with you, and when did all of this happen?
Okay, I was trafficked to Myanmar.
You as well, Myanmar, okay.
Yeah, via Thailand. Yeah, so it was on December 15th when I was promised for a job in Thailand.
2025, 2024?
2024.
Okay.
Yeah, so Thailand was the place that I was supposed to work. But now when I reached Thailand, I was trafficked forcefully to Myanmar.
Forcefully? What does forcefully mean? I mean, did you realize that you were leaving Thailand, going to Myanmar, and said no, and they forced you to go there? Or?
No, I didn't know I was going to Myanmar. What happened is my passport was taken at the airport.
Okay.
Oh.
Yep.
That was a red flag, number one.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you're on the way.
Yeah, but the agents tell you that don't be afraid. They are just taking the passport for security purposes. Yeah, so I knew I was just taking a short journey to where I was supposed to be working, but now the journey became longer than I expected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to come back to a question. I think Katha and Guli, that they are agents. They are not ghosts. They're human beings who present themselves and say there's a job. You pay them money. They are still operating. And I asked about when, because Samson, who spoke to us earlier, went in September. Duncan went in December. They keep going. I'm sure today you will find people who are still going, who are being told by these agents, I have a job in Thailand, no less. They're still saying Thailand. And you find yourself going to Thailand and then Myanmar. They are operating in plain sight. Are they being fingered out as people who are aiding and abetting in this trafficking thing? Does nobody, if you saw the agent who took your application, would you not know them?
I'll know them.
You would?
Yep.
What happens to these people? Where are they? What's going on?
They're there and they exist and they'll continue to exist. That's a sad reality that we have to come up with and agree, you know. And the reason why I say they're there and the government knows them and they know where they are, where they're operating from. I think the saddest thing is the fact that we lack the political goodwill to deal with these things, because I don't think, even when we talk about Kazi Maju, Kazi Maju is not the government literally picking you from your house and taking you to Maju. It's the government saying we've vetted so-and-so, and that so-and-so is another agent. Yeah. And these are people that are well connected. Remember, when you talk about human trafficking, you're talking about organized crime. So it's not like the government doesn't know. It's just because I am well connected to someone who knows someone who knows someone. You know, so even if you came to say that, for example, the way Duncan is saying, if he met the person that took him to Thailand and he ended up in Myanmar, he'd still recognize them. They're there. We all know them. They're working in broad daylight. In fact, they're very happy to even make those TikToks, you know, and be like, yeah, my organization, we're taking people abroad and we're doing 1, 2, 3 things, you know. But again, if I am well connected, and this is Kenya, you know, toa kitu kidogo is another thing, you know. So when you're talking about human trafficking, we're talking about people who are ready to chuck some good money for these things, because sadly, you will probably, you know, when you talk about some of the cases of the victims that have already passed on, you realize some of them, they come back without some organs. You realize some of them, they come back, you know, like there with
body bags.
With missing body parts. And the reality is there is someone on the other end receiving these body parts, you know, and that costs a lot of money, because I was actually reading the Medihill saga, and I realized, you know, if I were to sell my kidney today and genuinely in the black market, 400,000 is some pocket change. You know, it's something, you know, we're talking in the tunes of millions, as close as 3 to 5 million, you know, per kidney. So let me ask you about a heart that has to pump blood and, you know, it has to do all the functions. So how much would that be worth? I mean, that's exactly why I am willing to chuck some good money, pay and, you know, well, not pay, but bribe someone for my license to be active. Because on the other end, I have, you know, a youth that is desperate in need of a job. I have someone that's paying me to get this client to them.
Katha, you know, we are going to hell. I don't know.
It's a whole syndicate, honestly.
You see, what has just been described right here is a question of total disregard and disrespect of human dignity and human life and human rights and all the rights and the law that do exist. And these are individuals who operate in this country. They are given licenses by the government of Kenya. The very same government of Kenya that is supposed to ensure that Kazi Maju works, that these agencies have been vetted and are good people who are able to ensure that Kenyans who are going out there to give service, rightfully so, do get treated well. And if we know them, if they are on TikTok, we can see them. We are a country that is coming up with the digital superhighway. We know them. It's the government that provides us with the internet. Why are we not seeing heads rolling?
I think one thing we have to appreciate as a country is our level of commitment to correct ills or to correct things that don't really help the population. And one of the things I think I also want to bring to bear here, and what has made Kenya rank so highly in this index of human trafficking, it's because human trafficking is not a one individual, system that plays. It's actually organized crime. And if you manage to read that report a little more comprehensively, you realize it's actually in the organized format in which trafficking happens in this country that has enabled it to thrive. And when it's organized, it means there are many players involved in the continuum, from the recruitment to the exploitation. All these people have a stake in the money. So organized crime is the most lucrative industry in the world. Name it, in drugs, in human trafficking, where human trafficking is actually almost now taking over from drugs as the best paying criminal enterprise in the world. And we are looking at a situation where, how do we see this internally as a country? This is how do we break these networks? The report just singled out that we have so many groups of organized groups for criminal intended purposes in our country. These groups are not for any good. And what that means is something sustains them. Having to dismantle these groups is the first major step. Not just the single one agent we see, the recruiter. We have such a big continuum of players who are actually enabling the system.
Nguli, if I arrested a single individual who's a recruiter and start my investigations, I'm just assuming, am I not able to trace the entire link? Because so far we know the agent, we know the recruit, we know they're going against the law, but you're not doing anything about it. If we arrested, investigated, jailed, are we not able to trace the link?
I know what you're talking about. And basically that is where we are saying we need to be proactive. We don't need to wait to be reacting. Because by the time we are getting to react, there is a lot of cover-up already taken care of. A lot of it. And if the system cannot be dismantled in totality, it only means you may jail one person, but that is just one actor in the continuum of who does what. We are just saying, let's look at how do we diminish the scale of operation for organized crime in our country. Because that is actually embedded up to the society, community level, where we find very simple people who are part of the scheme and who also play a role.
A role in all of this.
Yes.
Duncan, how did you get out of Myanmar? Because obviously now the script is kind of the same. Getting into Scam City, then, and this is just an assumption, forgive me if it's something else that you were involved in because of now this supposed new job. Did you get into a situation like we've heard before where there was torture at the refusal of doing this work? And then what happened when situations became really bad?
Okay, there were a lot of torture that is mental and also physical. Yeah, there were threats when you did something weird to them. Like maybe communicating with someone outside, maybe home. Yeah, there were threats that you could disappear or you could be killed. And also there were some moments you could be put in a room that is really cold, maybe 16 degrees Celsius and below. And also you could be humiliated publicly. The manager could come and just hit you simply because of blinking or yawning, just things that a human being cannot evade from. Yeah, and also there are many things. As for me, I went through some, and I remember this moment, even my throat busted, and I was taken to a hospital, which is not even professional. So I think it's by the grace of God, I came back and I got some treatment.
How did you come back?
Yeah, I think at that time, the human trafficking thing about Myanmar was now hitting the global news. So Thailand was compressed to cut the energy that they were supplying to Myanmar, that compound. And things got worse. I remember for 3 weeks we couldn't access water, electricity, and other stuffs. So there was a rescue now that was arranged. But now the Chinese mafias did theirs to fool us to stay, not to leave that place. So we were locked in a room, and I think it was like a month of give and take from our embassy, the government of Thailand, and the rebels.
And all this time you were in this room?
Yep.
While they were negotiating amongst themselves?
Yeah, they were not ready to hand us over to our embassies. They were torturing us more so as to agree and accept to go back to work to those workplaces.
Duncan, during the time there, just the actual picture, did you see some of your colleagues die during the torture? Did you see people maimed? To what degree of torture are we talking about?
Okay, let me say, for the public humiliation I could see, but now the other tortures, it was individual. You could be taken to the torture places and being tortured. So I didn't see but I could hear those stories like from someone who was gotten from that place.
Nkatha, knowing that it is a well-organized criminal enterprise that governments do know, I mean, even at the time when Duncan was coming back, it's because the international community was now up in arms and talking about it. Thailand was forced to cut power towards it. That means the world knows about it. From a perspective of homegrown solution as Kenya, because I can't talk about Tanzania because that's for them to deal with, right? But homegrown solutions for Kenya, what would be the to-go-to communication to both government and to Kenyans? Because people leave the country because of poverty, because they do not have means to survive in the country, and they're trying greener pastures outside. So what would be recommendations to those who want to leave and the government to ensure that its citizens are safe?
One of the things that is very critical to know is the Kazi Maju thing, for example, is a very good idea. Yeah, but now we have to put in the systems and make sure that we sieve out, because in every system there's someone bound to take advantage of the system itself, or even the people themselves, depending on who is easier to get to. Yeah, and also the purpose of why you're trying to get into the loops with the whole thing. So I believe the first stop would be actually making sure that this information is available to every Kenyan just before you leave, or even if you're trying to immigrate, you can immigrate, but then you can immigrate safely. That's a word that we need to be telling Kenyans. You can leave Kenya, go get a job in Tanzania, and still work safely and come back home to your family. You can leave Kenya, you can go to Dubai, you will work, you will get money, you will get whatever that it is that you're intending to do, but you can do it safely, without necessarily having to fall into a victim, and then you have to start, crying online, and we have to come rescue you. Because the reason I'm saying that is because we have the information. The government, by the way, let me tell you, in all honesty, Kenya has the of all the policies on human trafficking. If by the way, honestly, they are all there. You can go check them. They are there. The